Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Carrow Road, the start of a new Norwich City era. David Wagner's first game in charge here today in the FA Cup third round against Blackburn Rovers. We've obviously got a minute to go until the team news. Paddy, what are you expecting in terms of team today? I mean, do you feel he will go strong? Is that kind of your inkling at this stage?
I think he will, and I don't think that's to do with anything about what he feels about the FA Cup, whether he feels it's a distraction in terms of his career with Huddersfield, or whether he actually feels, he'd like a run in it. I think because of the situation, he will go strong. I'd expect the likes of Pukki, Ida, McLean probably to come back in, Nunes, all of those sort of players. It wouldn't surprise me, and obviously we would expect it's going to be a 4-2-3-1 because that's his preferred style. Because he needs to make a statement.
And here we go, actually. So we'll bring it to you here. Tim Krul starts for Norwich City this afternoon. Aarons, Omobamidele, Hanley and Yanulis as the back four. It looks like McLean and Nunez, as a midfield two. With Hernandez starts, Ida starts, Sara starts, all behind Teemu Pukki. Norwich City subs bench, of course they are afforded a couple more in the FA Cup. Gunn, Hugill, Dow, McCallum, Sørensen, Sinani, Springett, Tompkinson and Gibbs. So to run through that Norwich City lineup for you again, we'd expect it to be a 4-2-3-1. Krul in goal, Aarons, Omobamidele, Hanley and Yanulis the back four. McLean and Nunez as midfield two. I'm guessing it would be Ida out wide, but could potentially be Sara. Hernandez on the other flank with what we will go as Sara as the 10 behind Teemu Pukki. Subs Gunn, Hugill, Dow, McCallum, Sørensen, Sinani, Springett, Tompkinson and Gibbs. Paddy Davitt, your thoughts?
The 11, doesn't surprise me at all. I'm glad to see it's Omobamidele because he needs to come back in for me. I think there was a stat I saw in the week. Games with him starting, games without, and of course I know it's a different head coach now, so you could say that's irrelevant. But him and Hanley for me have always been the better pairing of the two. So that needs to be a staple for me of the Wagner era. Good to see that. Dimmy and Max, I felt that would be the way he wanted to go because we know that in his preferred style, the one that was so successful at Huddersfield, the fullbacks are almost auxiliary wingers, and that's Yanulis' game. So McLean, that doesn't surprise me. Alan Russell had indicated when he missed the Watford game it would only be a week to 2 weeks, and there's a lot of differences maybe now, hopefully moving forward, but there are constants. Kenny McLean would appear to be that. Successive Norwich managers have felt he brings something that they want in their sides. But for me, it's the top end of the pitch. And if you've got Ida and Ornell, maybe because he knows him a little bit more from Germany, but that sort of really puts your stamp on what David Wagner is going to be all about with Zara as the chief support to Pukki. It's going to be mobility, it's going to be pace, it's going to be power, and getting the ball into those areas. So, not surprised with that 11 at all. Even thought he'd probably go with Krul just to give him a run out. On the bench, though, I think it is a notable omission given the news, the reports that came out of Scotland overnight. No Todd Cantwell. We'll obviously put it to David Wagner after the game if there was any fitness-related issue there. But, there was a sense...
on the bench on Monday, wasn't
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. And he was in the training footage they put out from the first day of training yesterday, was it? So, it looked pretty fit to me. And obviously no Josh Sargent.
Nor Ben Gibson.
So, we'll clarify that. We won't probably speculate too much. But just of those three names, clearly Cantwell is the one who's been linked with Rangers in the last 24 hours. He's out of contract, as we know, at the end of the season. And now, importantly, his representatives can speak to clubs about pre-contract signing. So, of the three, Cantwell's ambition is maybe with other facets in play. But, no, I like that 11. And it'll be interesting to get the reaction on here, actually, whether they feel that's a very positive step. It certainly smacks of a David Wagner type of team in terms of the personnel, the shape we think they're going to be in, and more importantly, what he's going to ask them to do. We were here relatively early, walked out to the sprinklers absolutely saturating the Carrow Road pitch, and even since we sat down, there's been another burst of them. I must confess, I don't probably get here as early as you do, Connor, to these home games. You said you'd not seen that before, so I think it's safe to say that's at David Wagner's direction, that he wants it quick, he wants it slick, and it all flows into this aggressive, full throttle, to quote him, type of football that he wants to bring to Norwich starting today, hopefully.
Yeah, just on the team, wouldn't necessarily surprise me if we saw Sara on the left and Ida perhaps in a role behind Teemu Pukki or even alongside Teemu Pukki. We'll see how that transpires. Blackburn have made 6 changes to their team. They've got some illness in the camp from what I can gather. They've got Pearce in goal, Carter, Hyam, Wharton and Pickering as the back four. Travis, Garrett, Markandale, Dak, Brereton, Diaz, and Vale. So very different to the team that came here last month and beat the Canaries. As an odd, maybe a slightly odd bit of symmetry given the reaction that Dean Smith got that afternoon, and obviously the prospect of David Wagner hoping to get his first win as Norwich City boss today. The subs for them: Kaminski, Phillips, Mola, Eden, Rankin, Costello, Morton, Wharton, Hedges, and Leonard makes up their match day squad. Paddy, let's start between the sticks. I mean, that decision to play Tim Krul, what do you make of it? It depends how far you want to go with these things. You can read a lot into it. You can notice the fact it's a cup game and Tim Krul hasn't had a lot of football and probably would have started this game, whoever the head coach was in the dugout. What do you kind of make of that decision that David Wagner has made to change the goalkeeper?
Well, you'd have to err on of the two scenarios. It is giving Tim Krul a game because he'll have done his homework, as will Christoph Bühler. Very thorough coaching duo. They'll know who's performed and who hasn't, maybe. But if they didn't, I'm sure the coaches who are here already, Stuart Webber and his team, they'll have been back and forth. They'll have been, because David Wagner will have been asking, what have I got here? What have I got to work with? And I'll be amazed if all the reports when it came to Angus Gunn were not. He's arguably our best performer this season, most consistent. And as a result, it feels more of a rotational to give Tim Krul some minutes today. David Wagner might have a different view, but it doesn't seem that likely because ultimately for me, Angus Gunn has probably been their best player over the entire piece this season, certainly the most consistent. So I think that's probably more a reflection of giving an experienced backup a run out. Barring any issues in terms of this game and injuries or what have you, I would expect Gunn to be back in goal for Preston next weekend. One other thing I've just noticed now looking at the club graphic, Jakob Sorensen back on the bench. That's the first time we've seen him since, I think, Hull, when he was it a broken foot he did, or was it ankle? I forget.
Metatarsal, wasn't it, I think?
Yeah. So that's a good sign moving forward because in that middle of the park, if it is the double pivot and the double six that he's looking to play with, maybe there's a role there for Sorensen in the broader picture. But to go back to the keepers, I think for me, unless I'll throw that one back to you, Connor, you disagree, I think it is give Tim Krul a run out today.
I guess we'll have our answer next week, won't we, in terms of that one? But I probably felt arriving here at Carrow Road today we would be seeing Tim Krul, probably irrespective of whether this was David Wagner, Dean Smith, Alan Russell, whoever was in the dugout. You see it quite a lot in cup competitions, particularly we saw Angus Gunn earlier in the season when Tim Krul had the shirt, for instance, in the League Cup game. So maybe not a massive surprise on that front. I mean, I'm trying to look down the team now. I guess Onel Hernandez starting is a real different change of pace. I mean, whenever kind of Dean Smith spoke about Onel Hernandez, he spoke about his ability to finish games and how he could affect games late on. David Wagner started him from the off. What do you make of that decision? I mean, it does look like a system and a shape that is geared perhaps a bit more to Norwich City playing down the sides than perhaps we've been used to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, as we're speaking here, Connor, I was just trying to find out when he actually last started a game. I mean, there was that. He almost felt like he was on the cusp of forcing his way into Dean Smith's plans earlier in the season, and then he was out again. But then he came on, notably at Birmingham, with that impact. I mean, maybe you have a look there, but it does feel like it is a bit of a signal. And of course, you're talking about wingers, and they've got two they paid a lot of money for currently out on loan. Even though Zolis was back getting treatment, carrying on his rehab, but the expectation is he goes back to 20, continues his loan there. And Rashica's, doing what he's doing out in Turkey, but you can't help but feel if he's now placing a higher premium on recognised out-and-out wingers, you've got two players there who could probably, under this head coach, have added something to the mix. But subject to, we'll get into that. Obviously, he's here today, David Wagner. We'll speak to him after the game, but his formal unveiling is, in terms of the media, is tomorrow afternoon and here at Carrow Road again. And we'll probably in more depth get his thoughts on, the players he's got available, the ones in the squad who aren't available at present, what he feels about that, what he wants to do in January more broadly. But in the here and now, it's Onel Hernandez's opportunity, and what an opportunity. I know it's a third round FA Cup tie against Blackburn. It has no real significance for what happens in the league, starting again at Preston next weekend, but he catches the eye today. He delivers what David Wagner wants from a wide player. Who knows? But I think we'd all agree probably Onel's Norwich career over the entirety has been lots of promise, periods of productivity, but overall a little bit frustrating. His final pass, his final decision, his goals and assists over the entirety. I know he's had clumps of good productivity, but I don't feel he's one who now moving forward going to be a frontline option. But today he's got his opportunity to stake a claim. Try and grasp it, try and play, do what you can do. I'm more intrigued, if I'm honest, with what Adam Eder looks like in a David Wagner team. Is he in a slightly wider station? Is he briefed with trying to get in and around Pookie? Because I think we saw a glimpse of it here against QPR, but Adam Eder, keeping fit, second half of the season, he scores goals, and who knows, that could be the difference in terms of what Norwich are trying to achieve.
Yeah, and I would imagine, particularly the way David Wagner's sides like to play, or have traditionally liked to play, with the fullbacks pushed very, very high, that actually those two wide players will become a bit more inverted. They will be perhaps a little bit more central than you would expect. So even though it may look like Adam Eder is in a wide right role, it wouldn't surprise me to see him closer to Tammy Pookie if that's the way he goes. Like I say, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised to see them both up there together. I wouldn't be particularly surprised to see Eder behind Pookie or Pookie behind Eder. So we'll of course see how it transpires when it kicks off. Pat, I mean, there'll be lots of talk today about style and philosophies and pressing. Probably, I would imagine. We've explained how the water has absolutely drenched the pitch here from the sprinklers. I mean, David Martin said in his opening press conference he wanted them to be aggressive. He wanted them to play in a certain way. You only have to watch what his Huddersfield team produced consistently to see that. I guess the question is, how much of that do you expect to see today? I mean, it kind of feels slightly like somewhat of a dress rehearsal, really, given we've got Preston next weekend where it properly starts, if you want to use that phrase. There will be a lot of people turning up here today with a degree of excitement of what this could bring as the lights come on. Pretty
the lights are on. There's a metaphor there.
There is. No one's home, etc. But yeah, what would you expect to say today in terms of style? I guess how much change would you expect to see today, given perhaps when his availing was confirmed?
Well, I mean, ultimately, we've just seen some nice pictures coming through our system, actually, of him arriving in the ground. It looks like he had a guard of honour for some. I don't know if that's the mascots or not, but it all flows into a sense that there is a renewed optimism. The way he carries himself, how he's come across in his initial touch points, that interview with Darren, very positive. Just his character, you can see the bubbly, infectious, optimistic type of person, and there's no doubt that will, as we can see there, there's no doubt it feels like the mood has shifted, but ultimately he'll be judged by what they can deliver on the pitch starting today. I don't think we need to run away with the idea of the night and day, because he hasn't had enough time to work with the players, matter of sessions really. So I think it's more that positivity that he'll bring to the whole place today. That'll hopefully infuse the performance. Blackburn have made a few changes. It's not the Blackburn they played here at Carrow Road in the league just before Christmas, which we all remember as a very toxic affair. But it might be a first step, and there might be things that we see within the performance from individuals that you can see moving forward is what we might see more of from a David Wagner Norwich team. But in terms of the structure, the style, I don't think we're going to see a massive leap forward, because how could we in such a short space of time? So I think it's going to take a while, and but there's no doubt it feels refreshed, it feels uplifting, and let's just hope we have. My mind, it's hard to stray from that Alex Neil Adams ship, because it was round about this time of a championship season, a squad going backwards, a season seemingly stuck in neutral. And boy, did that man, unheralded, which of course David Wagner isn't, but unheralded, galvanised a group of players who were good enough. They weren't producing it. And we know how that ended up. That ended up at Wembley, 40,000, green and yellow. Emphatic performance against Middlesbrough and promotion to the Premier League. And I'd love Lightning to strike tries. But it does feel different coming here today. By all accounts, the players have really enjoyed working with Wagner and his backroom team so far, as they would. I'm sure there'll be plenty there who probably had enough of Dean Smith. They've got a new man to impress, and I think you'll see that in the performance today. I think you'll see an intensity and a confidence. And if they play on the front foot and it's heavy metal football, to paraphrase the Klopp phrase, of which he's a disciple, then I think the people who turn up here today, and you'd expect now this crowd will be a lot healthier than it would have been in terms of numbers, and if Dean Smith had still been in charge, I think they'll be entertained and they'll enjoy what they see. And ultimately, for a first step, we'd all take that. Obviously, we'd like to edge past Blackburn and be in the hat for the fourth round. But first and foremost, if we can see enough of a mood shifter on the pitch, I think that would do for me today.
Absolutely. There was some excellent shocks in the FA Cup third round yesterday. What did you make of Wrexham's?
Not really a shock, that, mate. So we move on. Newcastle getting beat was the biggest shock for me. We'll get that off.
Deflection at its finest. Wonderful result for Wrexham, who are in the fourth round. Coventry City are not. Score prediction today, Paddy. Are you expecting Norwich City to edge past Blackburn, who have made 6 changes? I mean, their priority, it feels like, is probably on the league at this moment in time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for all the reasons we've discussed there in this, the last 2-3 days since Friday afternoon was confirmed, what we all really knew by that stage, that David Wagner was the new head coach. It feels like it can only be one result today. So what that is, I'm not sure. I mean, will they suddenly discover this defensive resolve? Maybe not. So we'll probably give Blackburn a goal, but I'm going to go 2-1, 3-1 Norwich, mate, and progress to the fourth round. And the Wagner revolution. I did have a look, actually, just reminded me. First 2 games at Young Boys, draw and a win. First 2 games at Schalke, win and a draw. We'll gloss over Huddersfield. He might have lost his first 2 there, but his two most recent appointments, he's got off to either a win or a draw. And of course, if he does that today, then irrespective, Norwich will be in the hat. So maybe that's a safer bet. Norwich will be in the hat. Hopefully it's a win, because we don't fancy going to Blackburn on a midweek night.
Absolutely not. And of course, if Norwich City do progress, or they are still in the draw come full time today, the draw for the fourth round is at 4 o'clock. So a pretty short turnaround. So we'll learn, hopefully, who Norwich City have got at home. Fingers crossed. Pink and Channels.
Your prediction, Colin?
My prediction. I was going to agree with you, actually. I think it'll be a 3-1 Norwich win. I think it will end better than it starts. It's my prediction. But we'll see how it goes. Of course, Pink and Channels, the best place to go this afternoon. Live coverage of this game. David Barker's first in charge. Analysis, reaction, and quotes from the man himself after the game. And then tomorrow afternoon is his official unveiling. It will be here at Carrow Road. We will be there as well. So thank you all very much for watching. And again, we'll see you very, very soon.